This episode of the MarTech Matrix is brought to you by Blurbs AI, where brands and agencies go to discover the best MarTech vendors and learn their value without the hassle of a sales pitch. It's a place vendors want to be so that they can be discovered. Check it out for yourself at blurbs.ai.
Welcome to the MarTech Matrix, the podcast that cogently uncovers the business problems each tech company was built to solve and the brands that use them. Today, Sean speaks with Luiza Libardi, head of e-commerce and marketing for FlueVog shoes, makers of unique soles for unique souls that have been seen everywhere, from the feet of Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, and Jack White to the runways of high fashion. After the show, head on over to themartechmatrix.com for show notes, contact information, and details on upcoming episodes. Now, get ready to enter the Matrix.
Luiza, welcome into the Matrix. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Delighted to have you here. For the first 25 episodes or so of the show, we spoke specifically to MarTech vendors about the solutions that they were providing. And now we've grown the show to the point where we want to talk to more and more brands about how they're using MarTech to solve their specific business needs and grow their businesses and solve problems. So we're really excited. You're probably like our third or fourth guest that works on a brand. And so I appreciate you being here, and the audience does, for sharing your experiences. As we've discussed previously, your business is a little bit unique in that you started offline, you moved online, and your business is still primarily offline, but growing online. So you have some of these e-commerce growth challenges that many direct-to-consumer brands have when they start up, but it's unique because you do have that footprint offline to sort of learn from and grow from. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got to FlueVog shoes, and then we can talk about how your background has made you successful there.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about and share our stories and listen to the other marketers as well. I'm a journalist by major, and when I'm from Brazil, I moved to Canada 13 years ago, around that. And I moved to Canada. I decided, okay, I always loved online journalism and like multimedia kind of storytelling. So I decided, okay, maybe I'll focus on this. And I studied web development and started working as a web developer for a few years. But then I really missed like all the other communication aspects of what I did before. So then a friend of mine was working at FlueVog. She's actually the product director, and she's like, I think you're going to love this. There's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of web stuff and great shoes. So I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
I love that, especially the storytelling piece, because it's so true that in marketing today, especially online, the storytelling is a way to connect with consumers. It's really a way to distinguish yourself when so many products are similar, or, obviously your shoes are unique that you sell, but shoes are shoes, right? You start with the same concept, but then yours are just, very beautiful. But you have to tell that story, right? You have to get people really into the product. And it doesn't matter if it's shoes or, healthy protein powder or something like that. You need to tell the story about why someone should be using the product and get them invested in it beyond just dollars and cents. So I like that approach. And the fact you have this technical background probably gets you a lot of credit inside the company when you're asking other people to do things that are somewhat technical or web dev related.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have this a small tech related team. So everybody kind of does some of the things that we need. So like RPOS and all that stuff, like everything that's technical. For a moment, we had an IT manager, but yes, it does help. And sometimes it's not as helpful to be the only person with that knowledge.
Before we get into some of the tech related questions, tell us a little bit about FlueVog and their journey to becoming an e-commerce retailer.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting actually, because FlueVog founded the company 54 years ago, and they were pretty early to the internet game actually. I can't remember if it's like 2000, the first website that they launched sounded like very like pre e-commerce era. If you go on the Wayback Machine, the internet database, you could probably still see those old versions. Sometimes we look it up like and find some interesting things. Like email, all that was being done from a long time ago. And then 2014, I think they did a major redesign where they relaunched the website. I wasn't working for the company back then, but like I heard some funny stories of how like, of course, when you launch a website, traffic goes down and like sales goes down until people get it, and then it starts going up. It's kind of natural to have this curve thing going on. And then I remember like my boss telling me that, oh my God, when we launched it, people were asking if we could revert back to the old one. It was so stressful because everything was kind of like new. And but the sales of the web of e-commerce were never like overtaking the brick and mortar stores until, of course, 2020, when it was just online, and then for a while after that. And I think now we haven't gone back to pre-pandemic, but it is kind of like more balanced, I'd say, like with stores and e-com.
Okay. How many stores do you guys have?
We have 25 now. Yeah, because we opened 2 in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
So what does that footprint look like? So 2 in Australia, I imagine you have some in Canada and some in the US?
Yeah. So we have 12 in Canada and 14 in the US, if that's correct.
Okay.
Does
That's
that
20,
does that
28.
math?
That's
No.
28.
2, 3, 4. 9. Sorry, 9 in Canada and 12 in the US.
And is it primarily urban locations?
Yeah, so mostly, yeah, urban locations, like cities where you have like tourists, and the stores are usually a destination themselves. It's kind of fun to go there. The people who work there are amazing. We call them FlueVogologists, just so it's really hard to say.
Good, so I'm not going to try.
They're usually people that are like related to arts and fashion, so like they dress interesting. We even have like series of like videos of them talking about their style, which is so fun. It's always really fun to go, and they're always ready to recommend things around the city. So it's kind of an experience.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're saying it's fun. It must be. What is that experience? I mean, what's unique about the stores? Is it just the people like that work there that are quite their characters, or is it the layout of the store and the way you experience products?
It depends on the store, of course, because like we have one in Abercrombie, in Venice, and it's a tiny store. It's fun to go there. The staff is amazing. It has like a bicycle in front. So, and then, for example, the Portland store has like John's car in it. And our Toronto store has like a vault, anti-gravity vault. So you take pictures and you're like with your feet on this ceiling kind of thing. So each of them has their own unique aspect, and they kind of like go with the vibe of the city and the location.
Yeah, I can see the alignment there between Abercrombie and Venice and Portland. It's definitely a unique population. So when you said the e-commerce business sort of picked up and took over for a little bit during the pandemic. Did you guys run into any sort of technical challenges because the site was taking on more website visitors? You had to deliver more product. What was that experience like?
Totally. We, so our site was chugging along with like the traffic we had pre-pandemic. And then we did a big collaboration with a local Canadian doctor who was bringing comfort to everybody during the pandemic. Everybody was like looking up to her, and she was a FlueVogger already and like a big fan. So that's kind of something that organically happens too, like somebody that's already connected to the brand. And then she was appearing on TV daily with our shoes every day, and people would like email us and say, oh my God, we want those shoes. So we made a collaboration with her, and 100% of the sales went to I think it was Food Bank at the time. We have done others, and then we donated to different charities of her choice. And so that was on all the national news. And on the day we launched, the website just broke because everybody was there and it was crazy. I remember customers posting on social media a picture of them with like 4 or 5 computers open on our website trying to get in. And like, I'm trying all my computers. And I'm like, don't. That's
Don't
one
try
of the
it.
reasons. No, just joking. But then, yeah, so we were stressed that day. We managed to get it back up, but of course it couldn't, the server wasn't taking the load of people all at once. I don't think any server would ever take that load ever again, like in the way that that was just like one specific moment in time where everybody just went. But then we learned things, right? So we created like waiting rooms for that kind of thing and beefed up our server space. So like now I don't think we haven't been needing to show the waiting room. And we started looking into maybe changing to a more out of the box solution. And one of the things that like we used, our website is custom made, our e-commerce site.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that for us happened back then is that like we were limited in terms of like who could support us with the problem because it was custom built. So like in order for us to have several hands on it, we'd have to teach those people what the code is and what it does and all that stuff. So that's why we started looking at other solutions. And then we quickly realized that our website is very intrinsically tied with our POS system.
Mm.
So like we pull all the inventory and basically the inventory from the POS system. So like we don't have warehouses. So it's very important for us to make sure that whatever the stores have on hand is correctly reflected on the website. So we don't sell things that doesn't exist. And we also don't hold too much inventory that nobody can see online.
Right.
So that's where the journey began, and we started looking for new systems.
And your e-com system today is still that homegrown system?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So what other, I mean, are there pros, or maybe talk about some of the pros and cons of having a homegrown system? I know that the phrase or the idea of a composable e-com platform is a hot topic this year. So many of these SaaS tools that businesses are using to run their businesses are plug and play, right? But they're built for Shopify, they're built for BigCommerce or whatever the platform is. And when you have a homegrown system, it makes it very difficult to at least quickly integrate, right? You need a lot of dev support. So how have you tackled that challenge?
Yeah, I think pros and cons is an interesting way to look at it, because I don't think there's an answer, right? Like everybody will have their own needs and pros and cons, and then they get to choose which cons bother them less, and they go with that, I guess. But for us, it was like, I think it's a big pro to have an in-house developer that can support us, because like our shoes are crazy. We also come up with like all these crazy demands for our website, which is like, I don't know, like, oh, now we want to do a gift exchange. We want to host a Flumunity festival and sell tickets online, and all these things. And we also have like our own like Craigslist style, which is called the Flu Market, where people can just list their own shoes and sell FlueVogs that they want to pass on. So all those things are, even if we were on an out-of-the-box platform, wouldn't be easy or cheap to implement, because we still we want it to feel seamless to the customer. We want them to log in, and with their FlueVog account, they have access to all these things. They can submit shoe designs for us on open source footwear. So we have all these things that are as weird as our shoes, I guess. So it's helpful to have somebody on hand that is up for the game and wants to do that with us. I think on the flip side, like it's harder for one person to also stay on top of all the things that are coming out and like the different APIs, as much as they try to make it sound like easy to implement. People develop APIs differently, and they have different setups. And like, even if we create like something that like for example, a product feed that is as plug and play as possible, there will always be like little adjustments we need to make and go over everything, which, I mean, technically everybody should be reading all the documentation of the things they're connecting to their website anyways, right? Because it's just good practice. But it is like more work than like, oh no, I've done this before for 3 other clients, so I'm just going to do this for you. It's never like that for us.
Yeah, it sounds like you take a very personalized approach. I
Yeah.
mean, on the one hand, the business itself is very unique, right? The product's unique that you sell. Your customers are unique, relative to a broader audience, but also unique to each other, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think about personalization when you have so much to work with, almost like too much, because you have so many unique products. Your people are unique. How do you create a unique experience, both on the website and in any marketing that you do?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I think one thing you said, and I was thinking about this, was that it's not hard to have a personalized experience within a business. Like you can just talk to people like you talk to people, "Oh, hi, Stacy. Oh, you're getting another shoe. Like I remember you got it last time we emailed," or something like that. It's not scalable. I think that's the problem, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't remember all the customers, and you can't guarantee that you're going to hire people that will know all the customers. And customers usually have this expectation that they're talking to a brand and they want the brand to remember them. So I think being personal is not hard when you're small, but for sure scaling is what creates the dilemma, which is something that we are like hurting from, a little bit. But that's why like the things that I'm trying to focus on is to try to make it a little easier. So like we are trying to upgrade like the e-commerce system to be able to collect more data, and we can use that data on our email and our SMS, for example, or even like on the account page that people have. So we have some sort of like CRM going on, because that's not something we have right now, right? We just have the POS, and we have our website, and we have those customer profiles. But I think as much as people really want to keep their privacy, there's also like a need to know who you're talking to and like what kind of customer they are.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic, because if someone walks into your store, let's say I live near Portland, and if I was a FlueVogger, did I say that right?
Yes.
And I walked into one of your stores, and I had a relationship with someone that worked there. They knew what shoes I bought in the past because I'm in their CRM, or I just told them because we're just talking about it. We're building that relationship. It's one-on-one. They can start to recommend you like that product, maybe you'll like this product, or look at this new style we have. Or maybe they call me up and they're like, "Hey, Sean, we just got this boot in and you're going to love it," based on, they just know because they know me. That doesn't exist online the way people, younger people probably never experienced that, but
Yeah.
people my age and older, we definitely experienced that. It's just like walking into your local shop of whatever, whether it's the butcher or the shoe store or whatever. If people know you, you get a different experience. And online, all brands typically know is what maybe what you bought from them in the past.
Yeah.
They might know where you live because they ship something to you. Maybe they infer gender because of the products that you bought.
Yeah.
But they don't know you. They don't
Yeah.
really know you. And it sounds like you're trying to make an attempt to get to know people three-dimensionally.
Yeah, well, I think it will be hard, like because it depends if they want to share that information with us. But like some things that help us in terms of like online customer service, like if you're just going to our website, you select the shoe, you put it in your bag, and you check out. That's fine. You don't really need for people to like call you by your name and remind you of something. But the interesting thing is that order goes to a store, and that store sometimes knows that person. Like it's not guaranteed that it will go to a store that where they shopped before, but when they do, they add notes to the card, and like you can also send a message to the store to say, hey, like I bought the shoe, but I'm not sure this is my size. Can you recommend more? And like the store can sometimes, if they know the person, they'll just swap and put the right size and just send them a note saying what they did. Sometimes they'll call them. So it is kind of like trying to expand that experience into the e-commerce. And the other thing is like the email support. Maybe people don't realize, but like if you email us, it actually goes to one of our store staff, and they talk to each other if they have any questions. Hey, this customer is from Boston. Do you know them? And it's still very personalized, but like you could say it's hard to scale that way, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's what people feel right, and that's what they usually do, right? So
Yeah, I think it just depends on the business. I think that the scale piece was the one thing I was thinking of. You're describing that, man. It's an awesome
Yeah,
experience, but how would you scale that
totally.
as you grow your business? Can you share with us how big your business is in terms of, if not revenue, like how many pairs of shoes do you sell on a daily basis or a monthly basis that you're able to manage it that way?
Um, so we do have, I can tell you, like in terms of web orders, we have from a range of like 40 to sometimes 200 orders a day.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, and it's divided. So it's, I feel like it feels smaller because this gets sent out to stores. So each stores, and we have 25, will get like
Yeah.
only a handful of orders to fulfill, and then the customers in store, of course. So it's still pretty manageable.
Do you have a centralized customer service team in addition to the stores, or do they handle that as well?
The stores, they have an option to be the customer service, right? Like to log in and to help customer service. It's interesting because some stores are naturally more attracted to it and they like doing it, and so they log in all the time and they reply and they're happy to like know customers through email. We do have one person who is the like on the retail team who is heading that and coordinating to make sure that we have enough people online, but we don't have like an office for that. It is still, it's decentralized. Doesn't, I guess it doesn't really need to be like a
Uh,
physical. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes the business quite unique.
Yeah.
How do you think about building relationships with customers when they're not buying something? Like there's that in between time to maintain that relationship. Do you have other specific places online that you go to? Do you do events? Like how do you
Yeah.
create that bond over time?
Yeah. That was another thing that like when I started 8 years ago, it was interesting to see that the event was a big component. So the stores host events, and they usually propose events that are interesting to their community, and they see that are interesting, and then the marketing team goes over it and helps them create the event page and send out the invites, and um, we usually like also like approve them, but it's very rare that we have to say no, this is not appropriate. So usually like pop-up shops with other local vendors that are like adjacent to the brand, or have something to do with the local community, and then like we've done we've done knit nights a lot in the past, which is interesting. It's the knitting community is into FlueVogs. Recently we've been doing a lot of swap and shops, which is like people bring their FlueVogs and they swap, and then they get to shop. They also shop the new shoes if they want, and other things that are not like necessarily sales related. So like as I mentioned, the gift exchange we do every Christmas, and this is anyone can sign up and they will get paired with another FlueVogger and they can send a gift. It doesn't have to be a FlueVog, obviously. And we actually suggest like a price. I think it was like $30, and we actually encourage people to make it. So like handmade things, because that's something that also we find is it's an interest in the community. People like making things and um, art and things like that. So that's another thing. And we have this big annual event that happens in October. It's happening next month here in Vancouver, which is called Flumunity Fest. We sell tickets, over 200 tickets sold, and we are expecting to, it's a 3-day event with talks and parties, and people get to see the next collection firsthand. They can't take pictures, they have to leave their phone out, and it's pretty fun. And that's how we actually get to meet a lot of like our longtime loyal customers too, because they come
Yeah.
and yeah.
It sounds like the personalization is truly personal here.
It is.
And you're doing a lot of, for lack of a better phrase, low tech
Yeah.
activities
Hmm.
that are more, that just allow you to really be more in tune with who your customers are, and look at them in the eye and shake their hands and say hello. And they're people, right? They're not just
Yeah.
a cookie on a browser
Yeah.
roaming through your store, which I think a lot of e-commerce brands that only sell online really struggle with, is how do they build that community with their customers in a way that's authentic, right? It's a popular word that we use now, and
Hmm.
authenticity is really tough to do digitally, and you really
Totally.
captured that. Now, marrying that with scale and grow and continuing to grow the business is probably sort of another phase in your evolution. How do you think about growing the company? How do you think about growing your sales beyond the communities where you represent FlueVog? In other words, where there aren't stores. Do you approach that from a digital marketing perspective? Do you think about that much?
Yeah, so I just gotta make a parenthesis here because like this whole like personalization was very much here when I started. So like I think like there's a lot of people in the company that deserve praise for that. So like John himself started very in a personal way, like his own with one shop here in Vancouver and then in Seattle, and he would like drive back and forth. And then my CMO Stephen has also been like putting a lot of effort into like creating all the personal experiences behind this and our whole team like of people, even the design team, like they talk to customers and to store staff about like how the shoes are and like the feedbacks they have, and they take that seriously. Like they even go into the Facebook groups to see what people are saying, you know. So it's kind of I think it's like part of the DNA maybe, that the personalization of everything. As far as like growing our audience, I think like for a long time our strategy has always been like kind of like a geo thing. So like where do we think we're going to grow? Let's go there and open a store. And I think for us, even though like we work with digital ads and that's how we've been trying to grow like with new audiences and trying to find them, I think it's harder. It's more expensive now for sure. It's harder for everybody at the
Yeah.
moment because that's what everybody is doing. But one thing that I thought was pretty interesting and we tried before we opened store was also direct mail, which is also technically low tech, but you can combine that with other like targeting solutions that
Sure.
digital ads do.
Yeah, like
And
programmatic. Yeah.
yeah, and that was super fun. Like I'm very prone to like real life experience campaigns. And I remember like when we opened, I think it was Victoria in maybe Brooklyn, we sent similar audience, some similar customers, one sock, and we invited them to come to the store opening to get the pair. And that was super fun because I don't know, it makes people want to pair up the sock and come and see. And a lot of people thought it was fun, and a lot of new people
Clever.
came. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun.
It's surely clever. So moving back to technology and the fact that you have like a homegrown system, are there? If I had to say, Luiza, tell me two pieces of technology that you lean on every day, that you couldn't live without, that are crucial to your business, that maybe aren't homegrown.
Hmm.
Can you tell us, what are the solutions that you really lean into?
You mean like the companies that we use, or just like?
Either or. I mean, and I'm talking about e-commerce or marketing or both. Like, what companies, what sort of technology? You mentioned programmatic direct mail earlier, but anything else that you really lean on that you've been able to leverage even with your homegrown system?
Yeah, well, email marketing for sure. Like we use MailChimp at the moment, but we're transitioning to Attentive email, and we do use Attentive for SMS as well.
Okay.
And I think like email and SMS are two that are really successful. I think for most businesses, like for us, it's the main driver of online sales. And then we do use as much as we don't advertise as much on social media, we do use our Facebook group to communicate with our customers. And it's been a community we created a long time ago, and people sign up for it. And that's where actually the conference event came from, is like a reunion of the people who are there. Yeah, and I think in terms of, I've thought of something. Oh yeah, we do digital ads for sure. Like Criteo is one that for the retargeting and new audiences, and Google Ads. I say recently, but now it's been over a year, or yeah, over almost 2 years that we've been doing Google Ads directly.
You mentioned earlier about leveraging data to get a better understanding of who your customers are. Are you doing anything actively to say understand more comprehensively who these people are that are on the website?
Yeah, so not necessarily to understand each customer individually, but like understand like the flow of things and like what types of products are more ordered online, what sizes and all those things. So we have this data in our e-commerce, and I'm working to bring them together more in more visual reports, and like combining that with the data in the POS, because those two are siloed. And so like comparing like what shoes are sold online, how do they compare to the in-store experience, and how people choose to get them shipped. Do they do pickups? Is like certain cities more prone to pickups than others? Those kinds of things we can get. I mean, we don't really do a lot with customer profiling in CRM, because I don't know, I find it a little complicated to in terms of privacy. I don't want to be moving that information and storing that information anywhere else that it doesn't need to be. So I think that could be a next step for us for sure, to have like a secure system so we can personalize in a more, well, like with the help of robots, I guess. Like we keep it personal, but like they would even tell
not
us.
Not creepy,
expand our minds, like, oh, remember this one? This is the first.
Yeah, totally. I want to talk really quick about SMS and email. How do you balance? I know that both those channels can be highly efficient, right? From a cost perspective, or a cost per acquisition perspective, or cost per sale. But how do you balance the conversions with relationships so they don't annoy people, right? Because I know with some merchants, I get too many emails, certainly too many text messages for products that, I mean, how often does somebody really buy a pair of, very expensive and unique shoes?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people have different cadences, but I imagine it's not weekly, right? And so if someone just bought a pair of shoes, do you think about when do you reach out? When do you touch them?
I think we think about it too much, like to a fault, because I know that there are always things that we could be doing more that are shown to us, and we're like, no, I think that's too much. So, for example, there are options of doing like browse abandonment, SMS and email, and we've always been like, well, let's wait and see. We do cart abandonment, and like I think the audience is divided on that. So if somebody complains after they get a cart abandonment, then we kind of like cool it off a bit, like it's and we can only do this globally. Like I can't really say, oh, if this customer complained, let's put him on like a little timeout and not send anything, because it's hard to do that, right?
Scale,
but we kind of take it down. We noticed like the Canadian audience was a little less prone to that than the US audience. So for a while we stopped doing it, and they were like, okay, now we'll go back if we notice that there's like people coming for the sale and they forget that like the sale's going to end, everything. So we try to like balance that in a like more sensitive way. There are some things that I think like all SMS providers give you, which are like the smart sending, where it waits a number of hours or days before it sends a second one. And those kinds of things, I think we rely on that a lot, because we send campaigns twice a week, and then there are the automated things, and we make like we do make sure that like, let's make sure people are signed up to receive something about a certain shoe by email, for example, if it's out of stock or if it's back in stock, those kinds of things. And I think it's great because that gives us the ability to say, well, these emails, they are very effective, right? Because we're only sending them to the right people. So it's like important to put some attention to them, and you just gain more leverage to make them even better.
Yeah, I don't think you're overthinking it. I think that being thoughtful is respectful, right? Because, I used this example earlier today. I bought a pair of sunglasses from this company. I won't name them. And it's only been a couple of months, and I get text messages from them twice a week. Like, how many pairs of sunglasses does one person buy a year? Like, you should know, maybe 6 months, remind me about them, maybe, or prior to a season or something like that. My prescription doesn't even change that often. So, give some thought, and it's going to be different for every product, right? It's going to be somewhat unique. Given your role you're kind of straddling multiple departments, if you will. That most companies are separate. You have marketing, you have e-commerce, you have web dev, right? Very separate. But you're straddling that. Do you think that gives you a distinct advantage over siloed organizations where what's going on with them, they know what's going on with you, and there's no time lost, and there's no like, oh, I didn't know happening, or what are your thoughts around organizations, especially like let's just say you were looking for another job, not that you are, um, you know, is it something that you'd be looking at in terms of how a company is structured?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think I've worked in some companies where, yes, I was just doing one thing, and maybe for me that was a little bit of a mental hurdle now that I think about it, because it's like, well, like I would love to like learn more and talk about it because like we have some things that might be helpful, and that's always something that FlueVog at the office even is like very personable, as you can imagine. Everybody talks to everybody, but maybe, I don't know, like would that be something I would be looking for? It really depends, I guess. It really depends on the company and like what the goal is. If you are, I don't know, if it's something super, super serious and you you probably need to have some separation. If it's something that's privacy sensitive, it's probably smart that like it's the information is kind of broken up, right? But yeah, that's an interesting
Huh.
point.
Yeah,
That's how we are.
I think it's yeah, no, and you have a unique background too that I think it lends itself nicely to being able to straddle those three departments because you can speak to them all. When you think about when you guys identify a need, and again, I know you're unique because certain things won't work or may take more time to integrate. But when you identify a particular need, how do you go about finding those solutions? What are your go-to paths to finding the right solution?
Okay. Probably should think of an example here, I guess. Okay, so maybe the one that is interesting is something that it came from the team. Like, and this is something that since I've started there, we've noticed that like people during the Christmas time, they usually buy gifts for themselves, for like at FlueVog specifically. Like it's hard to buy a shoe that is like loud and colorful as a gift for somebody else. So people usually would defer to gift cards, and we were like, okay, how can we make this even more special and give them an extra reason to buy a Christmas gift that actually like is a gift for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so then I guess the first step is like let's talk about what the design team thinks, if they can make something that's special, and like how would that work for us? Like is it something that we can offer online and in store? And then we came up with this idea of the holiday box that we released last year, and it just like sold in 2 days. I think it was we did 500 of them or something, and it just went. So it's basically a box that comes with a gift card and like a silk mask and some all like Christmassy gifts that are like unique and special. And the card, you paid a certain amount for it, and you can pick any shoe in the next year. So it has like a certain date. And that was like super cool because that was the thing that we noticed that like people wanted to exist. Like they always bought a gift card and like, oh, is there anything else that like I can make a little package to include? Especially if you buy online, you get like a code. You don't really get a physical card. You
Yeah.
have to. So this was that solution, and I think it's usually collaborative. Like either we have an idea, or like the design team has an idea, or the retail team has an idea, and then we all like start from that and then brainstorming like how can we make this better.
So a lot of collaboration, and then
Yeah.
figure out what technology to use. In this case, it was more about what to include in the gifts. So looking ahead into the business, and I mean, obviously, lots can change. But what are some of the key e-commerce and marketing technology investments you're thinking about making over the next year or two? And even if you don't think about it as like the technology itself, but like what are the things you want to address in the business?
Yes. Yeah. I would love to improve like our return system, the
Hmm.
way shoes get purchased and returned. Give people incentives to pick another shoe if they're not happy, or yeah, or just get a gift card, that kind of stuff. Just make it easier.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think we could improve as well is like the gift card system, have people like be able to check it online and see how much they have. And yeah, this is like another step would be to also pick between like having a card or just the printout, because sometimes they just want something nice to give. And those things aren't options right now.
Yeah, I love that you're just thinking about user experience. I see that theme over and over. It's really about creating good experiences for the customers and making them happy to engage with the brand. And I think that's special. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. This has been really fun.
Thank you.
I need to go. I don't know if FlueVog shoes are for me, but I'm going to go check them out.
Check them out.
And now that I know there's a store up in Portland, and see if I can find a pair for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have you back in the Matrix soon. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, you too.
This episode of the MarTech Matrix was brought to you by the coolest MarTech discovery platform on the planet, Blurbs AI. A place where buyers discover the best MarTech vendors and learn their value without the hassle of a sales pitch. At the same time, it's a place where vendors can be discovered and contacted by buyers. Learn more at blurbs.ai. For show notes and information on upcoming episodes, head on over to themartechmatrix.com. If you would like to learn more about the people and companies appearing on this podcast, send Sean a note at sean@themartechmatrix.com. New episodes of the MarTech Matrix podcast will drop every Monday, so be sure to subscribe with your favorite podcast network so you can stay on top of what's happening in the Matrix.